Hi, good to be with you. I'm sorry that we didn't have videos the last couple weeks, but I've been kind of busy. In fact, I'm still as you watch this, I'm still in England, but have recorded this ahead. But I'm going to be back this weekend for our worship. And this weekend, we're still in the Gospel of Luke. This lectionary year, we're in the 11th chapter of Luke. And in this reading that we'll have is the disciples asked Jesus to teach them how to pray. Right? John the Baptizer taught his disciples to pray, and that gave them some sense of identity, right? That people who in the community knew who they were by the prayer that they said. So Jesus' disciples also want this sense of identity, this sense of shared identity, and they ask him to teach them how to pray as John taught his disciples. So Jesus teaches them, right? He begins by saying, Father. This is the Lord's Prayer, right? But this is the Lord's Prayer according to the Gospel of Luke. And it's a little different from the Lord's Prayer we find in Matthew. Luke's prayer is shorter. It's simpler. And in my mind, it's got a lot more beauty in its simplicity. It has a depth of beauty just because of that simplicity. In Luke, the Lord's Prayer is very intimate. It's very relational, the way that Jesus teaches it. But also in Luke's prayer, and in Matthew's prayer, that the prayer doesn't ask that we become something other than what we already are. See, the Lord's Prayer, it recognizes that we are deeply human. It recognizes who we are already. That it's not asking us to become something else, but it's asking us to be even more human. What do I mean by that? Well, the prayer recognizes our humanity in that it recognizes that we are dependent. That we can't live this life, especially we can't live a life of abundance and life by ourselves. That we are dependent upon God. We are dependent on one another. It recognizes our humanity in the sense that we know that we're guilty. Right? It names it up front. Forgive us. Right? We know that we have not lived up the ways that we should have, that we continue to do things that inhibit our relationship with God and with one another. It recognizes our humanity of guilt. It knows us. Right? It recognizes that we're lost and vulnerable. That we don't always walk the way that we should. That we are vulnerable to the outside sources. See, that's the beauty of the prayer if we listen to it, that it knows our humanity. Knows that we need God and knows that we need one another. One of the things that I like about the Lord's Prayer, it's direct. There's none of this, could you, will you? There is none of this, please, will you, right? It just goes right into it. Forgive us, lead us, guide us, give us. So when we say the Lord's Prayer, are we recognizing all of that? Are we recognizing our dependence? Are we recognizing our guilt? Are we recognizing that we're lost? But in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus goes on And he assures us that God hears our petitions. He assures us that God indeed listens. Jesus does not promise. There is no guarantee that we get what we want if we pray the right way. That if we say it correctly with the amount of emotion and passion, that we ever get what we want. But Jesus does assure us, no matter how we pray, that God's presence will be with us. And I think that presence alone gives us strength in our weakness. That presence alone will sustain us for another day. That presence alone will teach us how to love one another. So my question, how intimate is your prayer with God? How does it recognize your own shortcomings? And are you okay with just feeling God's presence in your prayers, or do you really need something answered? Well, we'll see you Sunday, and I'm looking forward to coming back and seeing you again. So peace.